Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. South Africa will benefit greatly if it succeeds in instilling new confidence in the global investment community. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Now, ARM CEO Patrice Motsepe said government has no choice but to partner with the private sector to benefit the people of South Africa. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, Patrice Motsepe has become a very influential person. When he speaks now, you've got to listen, because, rolled into his being is what is happening in the local political scene, the local economic scene, and the global scene. And, our confidence level, the confidence level of investors in South Africa has been shattered. The first is nationalisation, then it's Marikana, strikes, problems, the weak link with Labour. And so there is a build-up process going on. People are saying, look, let's reinstill this confidence that is being shattered. And at the latest results presentation of African Rainbow Minerals, which is Patrice Motsepe's company, listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, he made the point, that South Africa can benefit greatly if it succeeds in instilling new confidence in global investors. And he's sort of making the point that, countries that create the most jobs, that lift the living standards highest, that improve literacy most, that provide the best health facilities, those are the ones that offer global investors the highest degree of confidence. And, he's saying now the government is really paralyzed without the private sector. If they want those jobs, if they want that growth, the engine of that growth is the private sector. The government is a wealth consumer. As much as it tries to get involved in the economy with its public enterprises, it doesn't really do much good, because we see SAA, in serious trouble, becoming a suction of our tax funds. Eskom is battling because it didn't realize at a critical stage in the 90s that it needed to keep investing. They forgot about investment. Now they've got to play catch up. So, these are all state corporations that don't see the signs which private sector companies would see, because they've got that ownership. Whereas, the leadership changes in these public sector companies and they don't really keep up. So he's saying, look, we need to work together. And the best way to work together is to make sure that the government is an enabler, not too much of a participation, because they haven't got a good track record. If you want those jobs, and you have to have the jobs, let's partner. And I think he makes a very good point, and I think that people are listening, and I think I can also see the confidence in him. There was a time in South Africa's economy where if Harry Oppenheimer stood up and made a statement, everybody listened. He could be a market mover. Anton Rupert, it was a similar sort of figure. Today, it's falling on the shoulders of Patrice, and he tends to admit it during the presentations. He said, look, African Rainbow Minerals gets questions from journalists that no other public company gets, because journalists see an opportunity to mix the political with the economic, and he then is prepared to take on that mantle of responsibility, which isn't always comfortable.
Now, what impact could higher salaries have on the future of South Africa's mining industry?
See, our weakest link at the moment is Labour. Very restive Labour, unsettled unions. And, as he made the point, if a new emerging union can offer or say to its members, I will get you a bigger pay increase than the more mature union, you find people flocking into the new union in that expectation. Now, we know in business you can give any increase you like, provided it's matched by the productivity, and the market can take that productivity. But if you get increases that are unaffordable, that business has got no future. And that's what he's trying to say, that the demands at the moment are unaffordable in the main. If they are unaffordable, all stakeholders suffer. The workers will suffer, the management will suffer, shareholders will suffer. So, let's be realistic about the level of wages, particularly the utterances from new unions. They need to be careful about what they promise their members, because if it's unaffordable, there's no future for anybody.
Now, talking about unaffordable, NERSA yesterday announced an 8% increase in electricity till 2018.
Yes.
What does this mean for the smelting capacity in South Africa?
Well, the whole mining community and the smelting community and industry and business are breathing a sigh of relief. You know, this chops that demand in half. Is Eskom going to be sustainable at that level? Well, they've got to be. But again, it's a state corporation. You know, it doesn't show the same alacrity as the private sector. It's got to become very, very commercial in these circumstances. We know that they're living with a past. So in other words, existing management is suffering from the poor performance of previous management. I mean, we had a time when, you know, the government didn't understand in the 90s the business plan of Eskom. You know, that when they had surplus cash, Trevor Manuel, as Minister of Finance, he would take that as a dividend. Meantime, Eskom was desperate for that cash and should have been investing. It invested too late. So now we've run into this problem. So, you know, it's hard to blame the existing management in Eskom because they've got this terrible legacy. Now they've got fewer resources to do it with. But as always happens, you've just got to do it. And they've got to come through. The whole of South Africa believes 8% is the maximum, I think. 16% was just out of the question. And like Patrice Motsepe, you know, he's got interest in a lot of smelting activities. You know, he's involved in manganese. They try and add value to the manganese by creating ferromanganese, and they've been trying to do ferrochrome. They've moved out of that. But with the ferromanganese, the cost of the electricity is so prohibitive that you know, they were really detesting this idea of a 16% increase. So half of that is going to bring relief, but they're still not out of the woods because their technology is old. They got a lot of capitalization to do. They haven't got a critical mass there. So we like to say add value to your metals and minerals, but it's difficult even in plant situations here where we see with African Rainbow Minerals and Assmang, their partner. You know, the capital has been invested there. You've got an operation going, but because you're not modern, you've got to start reinvesting, and it's not always commercial. So thankfully, I think there'll be relief with a lower tariff pegged for the next 5 years at 8% rather than 16%, which would have been, I think, would have closed some of these smelters.
Now, some good news is their copper operations. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, you know, we used to African Rainbow Minerals as being a diversified portfolio manager. At this stage, really, they don't do a lot of operational work themselves. They stand on the shoulders of giants, you know, which has been very clever from a strategic point of view. But they're in iron ore, they're in manganese, they're in coal, nickel and platinum, all in South Africa. But they've had aspirations for copper, because copper is a commodity, a metal that's going to be in demand, you know, for some time with urbanization, and the price looks quite good, even at a time when commodities are not doing too well. So when it comes to copper, everything that this focused South African company does is outside of South Africa. So it becomes a new ball game, and again, they're standing on the shoulders of another giant, Vale of Brazil, and they're already advancing a copper project very well in Zambia. So their plant has come in ahead of schedule, and so they're looking to mine copper out of Zambia. They're exploring for copper themselves in Mozambique. But where this whole idea of investor friendliness comes is now we have this black controlled company that has been so focused on this continent, saying, hey, we in copper, we got to look outside. So they end up going to Papua New Guinea, and they go to Chile, because these are copper producing countries, and they say, hey guys, you know, we get a red carpet treatment there. You know, we get the ear of the head of state, we get half the cabinet listening to us. And you know, he's only gone there as a result of to Papua New Guinea. This is Patrice has gone there. Patrice Motsepe, the head of African Rainbow Minerals, has gone to Papua New Guinea because African Rainbow Minerals is the biggest single shareholder in Harmony Gold. So Harmony Gold went to Papua New Guinea and made a fantastic discovery. But they're a gold company, and half of that discovery is copper. It's very, very rich. So, of course, African Rainbow Minerals are saying, hey, we in copper. Let us go and see the copper. Then they come away, again, with that political bent saying, hey, South Africa, why don't you treat your investors in a very good way? Because, we're finding that we're encouraged now to go into Papua New Guinea because of the way we get treated by the government there. And when we go to Chile, we interface with the finance minister. We're very, very impressed. So let's see, maybe we can apply some of that encouragement, to investors coming into South Africa. And I think he's getting that message through to the government. He says he is. He says a lot takes place behind closed doors that he cannot say in public. And he also encourages South African business, when they go behind those doors, they mustn't try and be polite. They must really tell it as it is, because that's the only way South Africa will benefit.
Some good advice.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insight into what's happening in the mining world.